I still remember standing alone in that empty apartment, keys trembling in my hand. The echoes of laughter, arguments, and whispered promises felt so fresh, yet the silence now consumed everything. The life I'd carefully built for years had collapsed overnight. My fiancé's final words replayed endlessly. "I'm sorry, I just can't." Staring at bare walls, I felt numb and lost. My heart raced painfully, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. At that moment, I couldn't imagine this devastating end was just the beginning of the greatest journey of my life. For days, I barely moved, hiding from friends, family, and the mirror itself. Every notification felt like a dagger, each unanswered message another reminder of my failure. My mother's voice on voicemail pleaded gently, "Honey, please talk to me." But shame held me back. How could I tell her I'd lost everything I'd planned? How could I admit I wasn't strong enough to keep it all together? I curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled of him. And just when the darkness felt permanent, my phone lit up again. A different number, a message that changed everything. I hesitated, heart pounding, as I opened the message. "Hi, this is Emma, your cousin from London. I know we haven't spoken in years, but I heard what happened. Listen, I'm heading out on a volunteer trip to South America next month. Maybe a change of scenery could help? Think about it." My initial impulse was to dismiss it, feeling irritation at yet another person trying to fix me. Yet, something about her offer lingered. I stared at the words, picturing an escape, a place where no one knew my story. Could running away really be the first step toward healing? Days passed, but Emma's message stayed with me, whispering possibilities I was afraid to admit. Each morning, I'd wake up and glance at the empty pillow beside me, feeling the suffocating grip of the past tighten. Finally, one restless night at 3 a.m., something inside me snapped. I grabbed my phone, fingers trembling, and typed a simple reply. "I'm in." Pressing send felt terrifying, yet strangely liberating. As I lay back, breathing shakily, I realized I'd taken my first courageous step into the unknown. Little did I know how drastically my life was about to change. When the plane finally lifted off, I felt a surge of panic mixed with excitement. Through the small window, my hometown disappeared beneath clouds, taking with it all my doubts and fears, or so I hoped. Beside me, Emma squeezed my hand reassuringly, as if sensing my internal chaos. "You're braver than you think," she whispered softly. I smiled weakly, unable to speak, afraid I'd cry if I tried. As we flew further into the unknown, I leaned back, closed my eyes, and silently promised myself I'd never look back. But promises like that are easier made than kept. The village was smaller and poorer than I imagined, yet incredibly vibrant. Stepping off the bus into the hot, humid air, I felt completely out of place. Children chased each other, laughing freely, while locals greeted us warmly with curious smiles. Emma introduced me to the volunteer coordinator, Carlos, who immediately hugged me like an old friend. His bright eyes sparkled with contagious enthusiasm. "Welcome home," he said warmly. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I hadn't felt at home anywhere for so long. Could this humble village really hold the key to finding myself again? Days in the village quickly blended into a rhythm I never expected. The exhausting physical work, building houses, planting trees, teaching children, became strangely therapeutic. For the first time in months, I fell asleep easily at night, tired yet content. Despite language barriers, I began forming connections with locals, their warmth slowly melting the ice around my heart. One evening, as I sat quietly by the fire, a little girl named Lucia approached, silently placing a freshly picked flower in my palm. Her innocent eyes met mine as if asking me to trust again. And suddenly, tears I'd held back for months flowed freely. That night, as I lay beneath the thin mosquito net, listening to the distant sounds of the jungle, I realized something had shifted inside me. Memories of my past relationship no longer felt like sharp, stabbing pains, but gentle, melancholy echoes. Yet forgiveness, especially toward myself, still seemed impossible. Early the next morning, Carlos noticed my quietness and gently asked, "Something troubling you?" Before I could stop myself, the words spilled out. He listened patiently, nodding thoughtfully. Then, with kindness in his eyes, he said something I'll never forget. "Healing begins the moment you decide you're worthy of it." Carlos's words echoed in my mind all day, following me into the hot sun, into my work with the children, even into the simple meals we shared together. Was it really that simple? Could I just decide to heal, to believe I deserved better? Later, as we repaired a school roof, Lucia slipped and scraped her knee. Instinctively, I comforted her, gently wiping away her tears and whispering softly, "You're okay, you're brave." As I said those words, my voice caught. Maybe Carlos was right. If I could be kind to this child, why couldn't I offer the same compassion to myself? That evening, sitting alone by the riverbank, I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant colors. It was breathtaking, yet bittersweet. Suddenly, I felt an overwhelming urge to let go, not only of the pain, but also of the guilt I'd carried for so long. Picking up a small stone, I whispered into it every hurtful thought I'd ever held about myself. Then, gathering all my courage, I tossed it into the water, watching ripples spread gently outward. For the first time, I genuinely considered that maybe I wasn't defined by what I'd lost, but by what remained. Just as peace began settling in my heart, my phone vibrated unexpectedly, shattering the quiet moment. A familiar name flashed across the screen, my ex-fiancé. My pulse quickened painfully. Why now? Why just when I'd begun to breathe again? My finger hovered uncertainly over the screen, tempted to answer, yet terrified of reopening old wounds. In that instant, I remembered Carlos's words about healing. The choice was mine: step back into the shadows of my past, or boldly face the uncertainty ahead. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I made my decision, one that would finally push me beyond my comfort zone. I declined the call and switched off my phone, heart pounding from relief and uncertainty. A sense of freedom surged through me, tempered by the anxiety of cutting ties with my past. Sleep evaded me that night, thoughts spinning relentlessly. In the early morning, Carlos found me awake, staring at the horizon. Noticing my distress, he quietly said, "You're at a crossroads now. The past will always test you when you're about to change." His words struck deeply. Could I truly embrace a new future without ever looking back, or was my past destined to haunt me forever? Determined to confront my fears head-on, I threw myself into volunteer work more passionately than ever before. Every brick laid, every lesson taught became my personal declaration of independence. Yet beneath my newfound strength lingered vulnerability. Each night, loneliness crept in, whispering doubts about my decision. One evening, while cleaning the classroom, Emma gently pulled me aside. "You don't have to pretend you're okay all the time," she said softly. My eyes filled with tears, revealing the truth I'd hidden even from myself. Could admitting weakness actually become my greatest strength? Inspired by Emma's gentle encouragement, I slowly allowed myself to open up to others, sharing pieces of my story that I'd previously guarded fiercely. Surprisingly, the more vulnerable I became, the stronger my connections grew. Carlos shared his own past heartbreak. Emma talked about losing her dreams, and even Lucia, with innocent honesty, spoke about missing her parents. It was as if by admitting our pain, we all became stronger together. Yet deep inside, I still hesitated. Was I really brave enough to fully reveal my scars? Or would exposing my deepest wounds only lead to greater pain? Soon after, Carlos announced an upcoming community event, a village celebration where volunteers and locals would share their stories openly. Immediately, anxiety seized me. Could I stand before everyone and speak my truth? The thought alone was terrifying, yet strangely compelling. Later, as we sat under the stars, Carlos gently challenged me. "This could be your moment, the chance to reclaim your voice." My heart fluttered nervously. Could speaking openly about my past truly free me from its power, or would I simply expose myself to judgment and rejection once more? The evening of the celebration arrived faster than expected, my anxiety intensifying with each passing hour. The village square buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Faces, now familiar and comforting, gathered around a flickering bonfire. I watched nervously as others courageously shared their stories, laughing and crying together. Suddenly, it was my turn. My legs felt weak as I stepped forward, heart thundering painfully in my chest. I glanced at Emma, Carlos, and Lucia, all watching with gentle encouragement. Taking a deep breath, I began. "There was a time when I lost everything, including myself." My voice shook, but I didn't stop. As I spoke, words poured out effortlessly, carrying away burdens I'd held tightly for far too long. Each sentence lifted another heavy stone from my chest, and slowly, the faces before me blurred through tears of relief. For the first time, my story wasn't about weakness or shame. It was about strength, survival, and healing. When I finished, silence briefly lingered, then erupted into heartfelt applause. Emma rushed forward, embracing me tightly. Carlos nodded proudly, and little Lucia beamed brightly. In that powerful moment, I finally understood. My scars were never a source of shame. They were proof I'd survived. After that night, something fundamentally changed within me. Life didn't become instantly perfect, but my fears gradually loosened their grip. Each day brought small victories, laughing freely, sharing without hesitation, embracing moments of genuine happiness. Yet, as my emotional armor fell away, deeper, unresolved questions surfaced. Had I truly let go of the person I used to be, or was I merely masking old wounds with new joys? One afternoon, Emma cautiously asked, "Have you forgiven him?" The question stung, revealing a painful truth. I had begun to heal, but forgiveness was a battle I had yet to fight. Emma's question haunted me for days. Forgiveness felt like surrender, as if forgiving him would somehow diminish my pain or justify his actions. Conflicted, I wandered the village alone, seeking clarity. Near the edge of the forest, I found Carlos quietly carving a wooden bird. Noticing my troubled expression, he paused thoughtfully, then gently said, "Forgiveness isn't about excusing the person who hurt you. It's about releasing yourself from their power." His words resonated deeply. Could forgiving truly mean reclaiming my strength, or was I still too afraid to fully let go? Determined to confront this final obstacle, I decided to write a letter I'd never send. Late at night, under the soft glow of a candle, I poured onto paper everything I'd kept hidden: anger, pain, betrayal, and finally, gratitude for the strength I'd discovered. As words flowed, I felt a remarkable shift, as if each sentence untied a knot inside me. When finished, I folded the letter carefully and tucked it away, realizing forgiveness wasn't about his actions, but my freedom. But as peace settled over me, fate prepared yet another challenge, one final test I never anticipated. Just days later, Emma rushed toward me, her face tense. "He's here," she said breathlessly. My heart sank instantly. Somehow my ex-fiancé had tracked me down, arriving uninvited at the village. Emotions surged chaotically: shock, anger, anxiety. But beneath it all was quiet determination. I'd spent months rebuilding myself, piece by piece, and I wouldn't let anyone shatter that progress now. Gathering my courage, I stepped forward to face him, uncertain what awaited, yet knowing deep inside that this confrontation would define who I had truly become. Seeing him again felt surreal, like looking at a familiar stranger. His face carried remorse, but the sight of him no longer made my heart ache. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice trembling. Yet hearing those words didn't grant me the relief I'd imagined. Instead, I felt calm and powerful in ways I hadn't expected. "I forgive you," I replied quietly, surprising myself. The heaviness I had carried for so long lifted immediately. At that moment, I realized forgiveness wasn't weakness, it was the ultimate strength. But then he spoke again, revealing something that left me utterly speechless. "I've made a mistake," he admitted, voice cracking, eyes glistening with regret. "Leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. I want another chance." My mind spun, and for a brief second, old dreams flashed before me. Our shared home, laughter, the future we'd planned. Yet, standing there, surrounded by the village and friends who had helped rebuild me, I saw clearly what I'd gained by losing him: strength, resilience, and self-love. Gathering all my courage, I gently shook my head. "I can't go back," I whispered, finally choosing myself, even if it meant closing a door forever. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself wholeheartedly into community life, experiencing each moment fully without reservation. Teaching the village children, planting gardens, and sharing meals became joyful routines rather than mere distractions. One sunny afternoon, as Lucia and I painted the walls of a new school, she suddenly hugged me, saying, "You're my hero." Her innocent words touched something deep inside me. Had I really become someone worth admiring? Maybe this entire journey wasn't just about healing my own wounds, but also about discovering that I had the power to impact others in ways I'd never imagined. Inspired by Emma's question, I realized it was finally time to face the unknown again. The idea of leaving brought sadness, yet underneath that sadness lay excitement, a hunger to experience more, to grow beyond the comfort I'd found here. When I shared my decision, Carlos smiled warmly. "This village gave you roots," he said. "Now go find your wings." His encouragement filled me with confidence. My heart swelled with gratitude for everything I'd gained. yet eager anticipation stirred. Could I truly carry this newfound strength into the world beyond, or would leaving mean risking everything I'd built? On my last evening in the village, everyone gathered around the bonfire one final time. The warmth wasn't just from the fire, it radiated from the faces of those who'd become my family. Little Lucia handed me a drawing, whispering shyly, "So you won't forget me." Tears blurred my vision as I hugged her tightly. Carlos placed a carved wooden bird in my palm, smiling knowingly. To remind you that freedom is always within reach. As I looked around, heart full, I realized the deepest connections aren't bound by place. They remain forever within. The next morning, stepping onto the bus felt frightening yet exhilarating. As the bus pulled away, I felt a deep ache mixed with profound gratitude. Each mile carried me further from the village, yet closer to my true self. Over the next weeks, I traveled from town to town, meeting new people, absorbing different cultures, and sharing my story openly. Surprisingly, each telling brought further healing, not just for me, but for those who listened. My vulnerability became my strength, inspiring others who'd felt lost, just as I had once been. Yet, late at night, a lingering question still haunted me. Had I truly found my purpose, or was something greater yet to come? Months later, an unexpected email arrived, offering me an opportunity I'd never imagined. To speak at an international conference on personal resilience and emotional healing. Initially, the thought terrified me, resurrecting old fears of inadequacy. Yet beneath that fear burned a quiet determination. Perhaps this was the something greater I'd been sensing. Taking a deep breath, I typed my reply, "I'd be honored." As soon as I clicked send, exhilaration surged through me. Could this be the moment when my painful past finally transformed into a purposeful future, one that could inspire countless others? The day of the conference arrived faster than I'd anticipated. Standing backstage, heart racing, I briefly doubted myself again. Could my simple story truly make a difference among these accomplished speakers? Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Carlos appeared. "Remember, your voice has power. Trust it." His words steadied me instantly. Stepping onto the brightly lit stage, I faced hundreds of expectant eyes. As I began sharing my journey, honestly, vulnerably, I felt a powerful connection form. The room fell silent, captivated by the raw truth I spoke. For the first time, I saw clearly how deeply our stories could heal. After finishing my speech, applause erupted, powerful and heartfelt, echoing throughout the auditorium. But even more meaningful were the faces afterward, tearful, grateful, inspired. Countless strangers approached, hugging me, thanking me for giving voice to feelings they'd hidden away. That night, alone in my hotel room, overwhelmed yet profoundly fulfilled, I finally realized that my journey had never been about escaping pain. It was about embracing it, transforming it, and using it to light the way for others. At last, I understood my purpose clearly. My story was meant to become a beacon of hope. Returning home after the conference, I visited my mother, whom I hadn't truly spoken with in months. She hugged me tightly, tears flowing freely, whispering, "I always knew you'd find your way." In that embrace, past misunderstandings melted away, replaced by warmth and understanding. Later, sitting quietly together, I shared every step of my journey openly for the first time. As I spoke, I saw pride in her eyes and finally understood the unconditional love I'd overlooked for so long. Healing wasn't just about forgiving others or myself, it was about letting love back in, completely and without fear. In the months that followed, I embraced a new sense of purpose, speaking openly, mentoring others, and sharing the powerful lessons of my journey. Each person I helped heal became a reflection of my own growth. One afternoon, sitting quietly by the river near my home, I thought of the village and Carlos's words. Healing begins when you decide you're worthy of it. I smiled gently, feeling deep gratitude for the broken road that led me here. Finally, I understood clearly that life's hardest chapters often hold the most valuable lessons. My past no longer defined me. It had set me free. Today, standing confidently in the life I've built, I'm grateful for every scar and every challenge faced along the way. The journey that began with heartbreak ended up giving me something far greater: self-love, resilience, and the courage to inspire others. I learned that pain doesn't break us, it shapes us, teaching us to rise again stronger than ever before. So, if you're listening to my story, know this: your struggles aren't the end, they're the beginning of your greatest adventure. Embrace your journey, trust your strength, and never fear being vulnerable, because in the end, that's how you truly become unstoppable.